how many years have you been with my mum?
It will be 30 years in December. We will have been together.
So coming up to your 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
How has it been so successful? Has it been successful?
Well, we've had our difficulties, but before we had you guys, we were together. We'd had 4 years, 5 years probably. We met in so no, actually together we'd had 5 or 6 years of a friendship, living together. And they, when we first moved in together, we had rocky. We were both quite sort of emotional. We had quite a lot of arguments because you're getting to know your boundaries. Living with people is not. It takes work. It's like everything takes work. You have to give and take. But it's a dull thing to say, but we find the same things funny. It's very rarely we have exactly the same sense of humor, so we make each other laugh continually. I thought she was the funniest. I thought sometimes inadvertently funny, but she's funny. She's beautiful and she's funny and kind. That's those three
are the most important things.
Those three, and she's emotionally intelligent. So you got 4. And more, she's kinder and more emotionally intelligent. I wouldn't say she's funnier than me, but she's certainly got the other 3. She beats me, and you can go a long way with that. So yeah, I mean,
but there are also differences. What would you say the differences are between you two?
Well, I'm far more. I'm a writer, so my imagination's all over the place. I need it. I have to work a lot harder at being peaceful and present. Your mum just naturally is. She just gets on with life, looks at life in a far more simple way than I do. I think it'd be fair to say far more intellectually curious than your mum is. But your mum, you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's exactly like yourself. I nearly had I had a sort of close. She was a girlfriend when I was at university, and we were very, very similar, and we were drawn to each other hugely. But we would never have lasted in a long-term way. We would have driven each other nuts.
Why?
Because we would have just clashed because we were too similar.
Yeah. How does that correlate? Like you clash because you're too similar.
Well, I don't know. I think that it's yin and yang. Is you need a kind of. I don't say me and your mum are opposites, but we're very different people. Me and this girl were. I don't know. You need somebody that's going to give you the counterbalance to your madness. Okay. And if you're both being mad at the same time or both being overly emotional, you're going to be. You
need a force pulling you in the other direction.
And space. You need to be able to give each other space, and you get better at that as you get older, particularly when you have kids. And having kids is a nightmare if you're not both. Without saying it, you agree about how to do it. And your mum and I, more or less, with the odd little, so we just kind of like think the other person's a good parent, and we don't have to say, this is how we should bring them up like this, or we should bring them up like that. It's just naturally that we kind of agree on that.
That's quite magical, really.
But that's because we spent 5 years.
You need that time
before, and that I guess not consciously. Then there's a period you can bail out. You go, Christ, I can't have kids with this person. It never work. So it's a kind of trial. I guess it's a trial period, and we had no money whatsoever. So
you never had actual conversations of like, okay, this is what we should do with these children. This is how we should bring them.
No,
never had those chats.
No, not at all.
It was pretty just like, let's just see how it goes. Let's go.
Yeah,
with the flow.
And we were all certainly in your younger years very easy kids, but then maybe you had 2 parents at home all the time, so that you all got a lot of attention. It may not have served you that well. I don't know. Time will tell. But you had 2 parents at home the whole time, so none of the 3 of you ever were without attention. Mm-hmm. And I think the pursuit of attention is one of the things that drives people nuts, because they didn't get enough attention. I certainly didn't when I was a kid, and I think that's what makes drives a lot of the madness of the world is children that didn't get enough attention going into the adult world, pursuing it vociferously, potentially for the rest of their lives.
So how does a relationship develop over 30 years? Does it go to extra layers of, does it get deeper and deeper, or does it kind of stay like this? Is, this past 10 years, it's been pretty much similar.
Well, you
vibes.
I think you make a commitment, don't you? Once you make that commitment, and again, notwithstanding the fact that we're not monogamous creatures, but you go, okay, we're going to give it a go. So you've got to make a commitment to it, and it's not, and that commitment can get you through rocky periods where you get fed up, or tough stuff happens with your extended family. And as you know, it's never been that happy with my extended family for most of my life, and particularly your early childhood. You need support, so you're providing a lot of people. You're providing your partner with a lot of emotional support. So my mother died relatively early. Your mum's dad died relatively early. You've got to, you're there to support. Now, there's the thing about living your life on the horizontal plane or on the vertical plane. If you live your life on a horizontal plane, you're just skimming the surface. So you go from relationship to relationship. When this relationship gets difficult or boring or whatever, you just go to the next one. And that's kind of a horizontal living, like skating on the surface of things, ice skating. Whereas if you go vertical, you're going down. You want to, no matter how tough life gets, you're with each other, and you just go, and you're deepening it. So over time, if a relationship doesn't deepen, it's probably time to get out.
I'm not sure. This probably isn't a contradiction, but just. You say emotional support to the other person, but we've also talked about how before you get into a relationship that you work yourself out, so you don't need emotional support.
Well, I think that's because we do need. Okay, you could say if you're totally self-reliant and you're, in my case, my mother had multiple sclerosis all my life, and she was, was a terror. The last 10 years of her life were terrible. Now, would I be a better, stronger person if I dealt with that on my own? Potentially, but it's very difficult. Nobody's Superman or woman, are they?
Of course.
We need a community. We need friends.
So what does it mean then? So what does it really mean to be okay on your own? Like, what's the limit of that? Like, you do need some things, but what's the limit?
It's just not using that person as a means to an end.
Okay,
but that's different from saying, I'm here for you, you're here for me. I don't think that is using somebody. That's just sort of, that's the benefit you get. It's the benefit you get from, you make a lot of sacrifices when you commit to a person and you have a family, but what you get is
a comrade,
a companion, and then I'm not somebody that has a massive amount of friends, so I thought, well, I'll have some kids and I'll have some ready-made friends, and I'll make them into my friends, and I'll be there for them. And as I get older and more decrepit, you'll have to be there for me.
To wipe your butt.
Well, let's not go that far. Before it gets to that stage, I'm walking into the sea or jumping off there's some nice cliffs up here. I can leap off one of those. Or they're bringing in assisted dying, so maybe by the time I need my ass wiped, I'll be able to bail out with dignity.
So let's wrap up this episode by saying, what do you think is one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's finding it difficult to find the one, although we've debunked the one?
I would say stop looking.
Mm-hmm. Stop looking.
Make sure you're healthy. Make sure you're being, try to find out what you do with your life. Get that in terms of, it sounds prosaic, but earning a living. Be happy with that, as happy as you can be.
So that takes a lot of time and effort and work.
Well, because we live in as I've just been reading, work is maybe a subject for another podcast, but work feeds into love and relationships, because, it's like being born is like being kidnapped and sold into slavery. I can't remember who said that quote. I think it might have been Schopenhauer, our favorite philosopher. But it's like, we live in a system that just wants us to work. And given that there's nowhere else to go, we have to find some means of earning a living that is at least bearable. So that's actually really the foundation of your life, and then you build on that, and then love will come from that.
But you hadn't found that when you
no, but I kind of knew what I wanted to be doing.
That was a big thing.
I had a sense of what my vocation was. It wasn't paying off. So when I met your mum, we were both broke. She was trying to be an actor and was nannying and doing teaching, and and I was doing all manner of low paid jobs and then working in office. But I kind of knew I had a sense of purpose that is quite strong, and it's still strong enough now, 30 years later. But my advice to you is stop looking and don't settle for second best. If you do have a someone that you like, and then, as we said earlier, if they're not treating you or not making you their absolute priority, get out and just lower. Alain de Botton says it, doesn't he? Let your girlfriend or boyfriend, let it be good enough. Don't expect it to be perfect. If you're that
could go in all parts of life.
Yeah, exactly. If you're with someone that is kind to you and has your best interest at heart, then you're doing all right. Keep the physical side of things going as well if you can, because that is quite important. But that's for sort of if you get older. But when you're young, don't settle for second best, but just try and lower your expectations. Love the one you're with. Don't think there's some nebulous perfect. At my age, it would be, if you're a guy, Jennifer Connelly. If you're a girl, Brad Pitt. Stop expecting the most perfect person. See who's around you in your little sphere, and try to be kind and loving to everybody that you meet, and then hopefully something will flower. But
self-reliance.
Otherwise, you're doing the swiping continually. You're just gonna be swiping for the rest of your life, aren't you? Thinking, oh, this one's a 7 out of 10, this one's an 8 out of 10, but I need a 10 out of 10. And then when you get a 10 out of 10, or maybe I could get an 11 out of 10, and your life will be over, and you'll be 80, and you'll go, oh my God, I haven't gone on the vertical plane. I've just been on the horizontal plane my whole life.
That's a really good analogy to kind of realign yourself with your priorities going on the.
Yeah, I can imagine if you maybe think, imagine when you meet someone, think maybe if I was on a desert island and we were we're both heterosexual or whatever it is, if you're both of the same sexual orientation, and when you're on a desert island, you would find a way to rub along with that person, because we're all ultimately the same. You can't keep, we're here for such a small amount of time, and the world is so vast with so many people in it. What are you going to do? You're going to sort of move from one to the next. Or if you feel, that you're not meeting anybody, be patient and work on yourself and be happy, and know that the loneliness that you're feeling when you're young, and everybody goes through it without exception. When you're in your 20s, it can be very, very lonely. That it will pass, and there's plenty you can be doing that you can enjoy life, even if you're not in a relationship. Loads of people are happy on their own. Doesn't mean you'll always be on your own, but you might as well learn to be peaceful and happy on your own, because we're all on our own ultimately. Even me with a reasonably good relationship, I'm very well aware that everything is transient, and she could die at any minute, and I'll be floundering alone. So we have to learn to be solid alone in this world. Everybody, whether you're 25 or 55 or 75, it's ultimately, that's the paradox. It's a solitary business when you're surrounded by millions of people. But ultimately, we have to all be cool with ourselves, and preferably learn to dissolve our sense of separation and live as part of everything, with our ego fucking it up as little as possible.
That sounds like a great closing rant.
Yeah.
I'd recommend listeners to read Eric Fromm's The Art of Love.
Yeah.
Have you got any
The Art of Loving?
Art of Loving.
Yeah. Read all Eric Fromm, and we talked about Sex at Dawn.
Sex at Dawn,
by Christopher Ryan and Casilda Jether. That's fantastic. And then Alain de Botton, anything he says about love and relationships, and also worth listening to if you're young. But your mum's been listening to it. The
Mel Robbins.
That's got a lot of good stuff about relationships. It's got a chapter about relationships. Mel Robbins.
Let Them theory.
Let Them. There's a lot of good. I mean, that's just basically Stoicism, but it's just Stoicism is the bedrock of all common sense.
I hope to get Mel Robbins on the podcast.
Well, you'd be doing very well. But there's a lot of good stuff in there particularly for young people about not accepting bullshit. If somebody can't listen to you or look you in the eye, and I think the phones have screwed it up, haven't they? People come. You go on a first date and everyone's just going to be on their phones. You need to be looking at each other in the eye and talking like back in the old days, how we used to do it. Our friend was somebody who was in front of you, who at least you may have been talking bollocks, but at least there was no phones in the way of you talking bollocks at them. So yeah.